Hi, my name is Rahul Hirani, and I lead product management at Cyral. I'm excited to be speaking at PagerDuty Summit this year, and today I want to talk about a practical application of security as code, eliminating privilege management toil using the example of on-call access management.
So let's start off with security as code. While traditional security practices were siloed and guarded by specific teams, security as code tears down that long-standing compartmentalization. It moves security design and testing to an earlier stage in the development workflow. It puts security practices on the record where they can be reviewed and audited, and it builds them into your CI/CD pipeline so they're treated as first-class operational steps that can't be skipped. In this talk, we'll be paying special attention to the policy components of this framework. In most organizations, user permissions and grants are handled by IT or security teams clicking through a series of screens. Even a simple access request sets into motion a cumbersome and confusing sequence of steps. First, you'll ping someone with a request. Then you'll be redirected to filing a ticket. Behind the scenes, the ticket gets triaged and eventually picked up. The ticket assignee consults a playbook. The responsible manager gets roped into the approval process. Then there may be some additional security and compliance approvals. Finally, usually days later, the service administrator can move forward with granting you access. And this is only what it looks like when everything goes well. Now, this isn't red tape for the sake of red tape. These steps help organizations comply with security policy and meet audit. But unfortunately, not only is this process inefficient, it's not all that secure either. The approvals only represent rubber stamp actions, not thorough vettings, and usually permission decisions are only revisited when an organizational change or audit forces a review. This opens up security gaps due to policy creep, role changes, misconfigurations, and lags in enforcement. From startups to large organizations, handbook-based policy management rarely scales well and is often applied in non-uniform ways. Policy as code addresses this by codifying policies, providing visibility, and enforcing them automatically. Under policy as code, policies are standardized into records readable by both the people who manage them and the systems that enforce them. Policies written in formats like YAML and JSON allow this because they're consistent enough for an authorization system to enforce and legible enough for security personnel to read. With policies stored consistently and globally, real-time auditing of access grants is possible for the first time. Security teams can monitor and review authorization decisions and policy changes, allowing the entire company to move faster without breaking core security and compliance requirements. So now let's see this in practice as we onboard a new SRE. We'll make sure this person has the necessary access they need from the get-go, but we also want to ensure that they only make production changes or access certain operational data when on call. Because SRE access needs to be managed carefully, and access requests while on call can be urgent, policy as code can really benefit our processes here. First, let's address onboarding. Let's say we're already using Terraform to provision hardware. Today we'll use it to provision policy, starting with GitHub. Instead of managing GitHub through the console, we'll import our identity and access management into Terraform. Now, instead of onboarding stemming from Jira tickets, the manager of the employee just submits a pull request in GitHub. Requests can follow the standard checks, including limits on who can change what and required approvals. This ensures that each request, like this onboarding request, always goes through the admin in charge. Next, let's talk about production changes. Let's assume that we begin using HashiCorp Sentinel as well. We can start making use of the tool to codify rules like this one. This rule specifies that only those SREs who are on call today can make changes to the production environment. Lastly, let's see how we might limit access to operational data to on-call hours. Sentinel alone can't do this. Fortunately, Cyral, which is a data governance and security product, works well with the HashiCorp ecosystem as well as PagerDuty to enable this. Cyral is a stateless interception technology that enables security as code and policy enforcement at the data layer. In the Cyral console, we'll start by integrating with the tools that we need for access management. We'll use Okta for authentication and PagerDuty for scheduled on-call authorization. Let's now configure these settings on our data repositories. Cyral works with an extensive catalog of data repositories. For example, Let's say our on-call engineers will need access to secure data in MongoDB. Here, we've already let Cyral know about the native accounts on this Mongo database. We can perform all of this programmatically, but for the sake of this demo, we'll add an authorization here in the console that allows anyone in the Okta Engineering SSO group to log into this database using the native database account when they are on call. So now anyone in the engineering team can access Mongo while they're on call in PagerDuty. To take this one step further, we can also make sure that even if an engineer is on call, they cannot access personally identifying information fields unrelated to investigations. So let's recap. We integrated Cyral with Okta and PagerDuty, configured access for our Mongo database, and disallowed access to specific fields, all via policy within Cyral. Now we're looking at Cyral's core technology, the database sidecar. These are stateless interception services that sit in front of your data repositories to enforce authentication and authorization policies. They're highly available and work in any environment. Now, Frank is on call in PagerDuty right now. Frank can authenticate to Mongo through the Cyral sidecar with their Okta SSO account and a short-lived token provided by Cyral. But when Nancy, who is not on call, attempts access, Cyral blocks the attempt. Fortunately, if the matter is time sensitive, Nancy can still request access on demand through ChatOps. Lastly, all of this activity, authentications, database connections and queries, and approvals are logged for audit and analysis in an analytics tool of our choice. And that is how Cyral simplifies and automates the toil of managing access to production data for incident response and troubleshooting.
Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of PagerDuty Summit.